So today I want to talk about the power of love, but I want to talk about it from a feeling nature. And I want to talk about it differently than anything we've looked at before, because I don't know about you, but for me, love was always about the desire for something that I thought was good. It was when I was a teenager, oh, if I could be with that girl and I could hold her hand, that would be so great. And she held your hand. Oh, I love her. Or remember the first time you went to a Baskin and Robbins and they had 31 flavors. When I was growing up, all you had was vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. And so you got to the thing and you tried something like pistachio and you said, oh, I love it. And you see, we live in a society right now where television and the media brings out this great new Maserati. I love that car. And we use this word love so many times, so often, that we become comfortably numb. We forget what this idea of love is. Here's what I understand, is that love exists now. It doesn't exist yesterday. It doesn't exist in the future. It is now. And now is always a connection into oneness. Because if you are in this now, right now, there is no possibility of hate. If you are in this opportunity of being in the now, right here, there's no possibility of judgment. Do you see, when you are in the now and you've taken the time to consciously focus your mind into this present moment, there's only love. There is no room for anything else, because here's what the mind cannot do. The mind cannot think two things at one time. So if you're in a state of feeling disconnected, if you're in a state of feeling hateful, if you're in a state of feeling anger, if you're in a state of feeling resentment, if you're in a state of feeling judgment, you have to simply remember, all I need to do is shift my thought to now and I'll be in love. You don't have to work through a problem. You don't have to psychologically analyze everything you go through. You have to find a way to center into the now. And what I so understand about that is you can do that whether you're with yourself, whether you're with your wife, whether you're with a friend, with a community. All it takes is a moment to just say, okay, I'm focusing on the now. And you look into their eyes or the eyes of yourself in the mirror, and you get centered on that moment alone. You do not think about the past about them. You do not think about the future. You think, I am with them right now. And at that moment, your heart opens and you will be in the now. The great Rumi poet said so clearly, God will break your heart over and over and over and over and over again until you leave it open. So you have a choice. We have a choice. Do we leave our heart open to experience it? I loved on Friday night when John was here and he was talking about this idea of authenticity. And authenticity simply means living up to our highest values. And the fascinating thing about living up to our highest values is that no two people have the same values. In fact, most people, as John would have said, have never even figured out what they truly value, because they say, I value compassion, I value unconditional love, I value infinite abundance, I value these things. But then when you look at the life, you ask the question, so where am I spending my money? Where am I spending my time? Who am I hanging around with? You find that they're in different places than where you say your values are. Because what you do with your money, what you do with your time, who you hang around with is a reflection of what you truly value, because the inner always reflects the outer. Did you hear that? The inner reflects the outer. It's not the outer changes the inner. This is where we as a society have gone comfortably numb. We have said that the external, the beautiful woman, the beautiful man, the beautiful car, the great house, the great foods, the restaurants, all of these things are what will make us happy. And we fall into the trap and we develop what? Addictions. And addictions are simply desiring and making a habit of things outside of ourselves, and we can never fill our God-sized hole. But when we go within, and we go into the now, and we feel the love within, that radiates out. And our situations become the abundance that we like. They have the perfect partner. They have the perfect place to live. They have the right vehicle. They have all of these things. But you see, there's no attachment. The great Buddhist teachers teach us, don't be attached to things. Because why? Because things are simply an expression of what's inside. Be attached to feeling good. Being attached to seeing good in others. See, when you're attached to that, that becomes your priority. That becomes the idea that you're building a new habit. You see, we sometimes judge ourselves and say that habits are bad. Not at all. There are great, great habits. A great habit is to work out or to eat a certain way to take care of your physical body. Another great habit is to constantly be telling your partner that you love them. You know, one of the things that John really hit home, and he says, every time you're with someone, anyone that's important in your life, never leave them without saying thank you and without saying I love you. Because you never know when it will be the last time you'll see them. Think about that. And it's so hard for us. We make it so difficult to say these words, I love you. Because when we think of the words, I love you, we think about that it's an intimate act, and an intimate act means, I've got sexual desires for you. Intimacy has nothing to do with sex. To say to someone, I love you, means I know that the truth of who you are, regardless of how you're acting, is the essential nature of God. And that as that, your perfection is always there. And how you're demonstrating that is irrelevant to me because I see your perfection and that's what I hold for you. Now see, I can love anyone saying that. Here's the beauty of that though. I can love anyone and I can choose not to be with them. You see, if someone is behaving in a way that is not in alignment, that makes me feel good, I can see the God that they are. I can recognize it, and I can acknowledge it, and I do not have to stay there. Does that make sense? Because I want to be in where I am feeling and able to be in my values. I want to be there where I feel good. And if I'm with someone who's not feeling good, I want to be there so I can help uplift them. But if they're not in a place to be uplifted, you can't change anyone. And see, to love someone is to recognize you can't change them, that they can only change themselves, and to let them be. Here's the greatest thing about love and what love means. Love means perfect freedom. Because I will tell you, getting married at the age of 21 and having been married now longer than dirt, the reason that we have stayed together as long as we've stayed together is because Jean has always given me freedom. When I was young and very immature and irresponsible, she still gave me freedom. Because all of the mistakes I made growing up to the point where I am in my relationship have made me who I am. So I don't ever look back in my life and say, you know, I regret that. I look back in my life and say, thank you. Because everything that I had in my life has brought me to the place where I am able to be here now doing one of my highest values, and that is to teach. What I've uncovered is that one of my highest values is to teach. Another one of my highest values is to learn. I don't think you can separate the two. And so by being in a relationship that's in freedom, we're able to be loving. We're able to be where I can teach and I can learn. Now, if I'm being given freedom, I have to give my partner freedom in what she does. And see, our values in most cases are very different. What I desire to express as my top priorities in life and how I desire to be in the world is very different than Jean. But we have a commonality that's there that is this. We support each other and we challenge each other to be the greatest we can be. See, that's the reason Gene's in my life, to support me and to challenge me. But I want to say that this idea of challenge does not have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be like we see on television where there's arguing. It can be an agreement where you're able to have heartfelt connections, where you can sit down and say, you know, I'm thinking this is my value right now. Do you see me demonstrating that in my life? And my partner, well, you know, I really don't see that. What I see is this. Because how often do you have someone in your life who is honest with you, that will share with you what they see, so that you can come out from the cloud that you're in to be able to see a truth that's deeper than you might have heard before? See, that's love. Romance is a benefit that you've chosen to make with someone that you've made an agreement with to spend part of or all of your life. You see, there is no right thing about this idea of marriage. Marriage is something that has become very popular in the last 150 years. Prior to that, marriage was not the institution it is now. So what marriage is where two people come together and they say that I am forming a sacred union. We are forming a sacred union, and we have these agreements to live so that we can support and challenge each other to be the highest expression of God that we want to be. And we'll come together and we will partner and we will allow each other to grow in perfect freedom. Were you told that as a child? I sure wasn't. And I'm so glad that I'm here to share that with you now. More importantly, I'm so glad that I can share it with my sons. I'm so glad that these young people are hearing it now. Because while they're going to hear it at a perspective different than maybe I'm coming from, the seed is planted. And you see, as a parent, your role is to keep planting and fertilizing and nurturing that seed. As a grandparent, your role is to nurture that seed. As a partner with someone, your goal is to nurture that seed. More importantly, your role with yourself is to plant and nurture that seed. So people ask me, they say to me, so what do I do when I'm feeling separate from God and I'm looking at someone else and I can't see God in them? I would say to you, find one little thing that you like about them. One little thing. And then focus on that. You see, when you're focused on that one little thing, your mind is occupied. It can't focus on the other. And then focus on something else that makes you feel good that you like. Then something else. See, as long as you are focusing on what you like, you cannot focus on what you don't like. Ernest Holmes said that so clearly. He says, in this idea of praying constantly, it's focus on what you want. Always on the desired result. Keep your mind on that. Do not go to the, well, I got to have plan B. Because the second you say, I've got a plan B, you're saying to the law that plan A is not going to work. And you've opened up for failure. You've said that the current way is not going to work. So if you've got a plan B, it's not going to work. And what's fascinating is, in my corporate life, 27 years of it, I was director of financial planning and analysis for a large insurance company. And so I always had plan B, plan C, plan D. And then if you follow that logic through, if you're in that mindset, you take it into your life. Do you have plan A, B, and C for a wife? Well, if this one leaves, who's the next one? If that one leaves, who's the next one? Do you have what about the kids? Do you have a plan A, B, and C? Do you have a plan A, B here? Do you have a dream? And if that dream isn't working out perfectly, do you go to dream B and then develop dream C? See, you've got to get really clear on what it is you want and then put all of your focus on it. And when you do that, you are loving yourself. Now think about that just for a second. If you put all of your focus on what you want, what would that feel like? Feel good, wouldn't it? It'd feel peaceful. It would feel energizing. But the idea is get clear on what you want. When you get clear, there are no boundaries. One of the interesting things that I've got is that when I think of love from a spiritual practice standpoint, I go to meditation. Because Ernest Holmes, when he wrote The Science of Mind, he talked about love and law. And as you read all of his books, it's always about the law. How do you direct your thoughts? How do you direct your creative power in the world? And so it's always about creating an experience, creating an expression. But then at the end, he started talking more about love. And love was the meditative aspect of it. And right before he died, he said, I wished I had spent more time on love than on law. So if you take that idea that love is the essential nature, what does love do? If you take love, you go to meditate. When you go into meditation, what does meditation do? It takes you into the now. You're fully present in the now, and the now is where you love. You see, so you get into the power, you get into the oneness, you get into the stillness. You've released all thoughts going in different directions. You've got yourself in a place where your power is connected. From there, you speak from love, and it is done unto you. Your creative power just has accelerated. That's why the Beatles sang, love is all you need. That's why you have these things. Love is all we are looking for. There's nothing more that we're looking for. Something inside of us is looking to feel this perfect connection to something greater than we are. I'm not going to say God is what we're looking for because I don't know what your definition of God is. Because everyone has got a definition and everyone is healing from that definition. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. God is not a gray-haired, great immortal being that is there guiding and directing your life and judging. What I understand God to be is an infinite power and presence that is everywhere present, constantly creating and recreating itself out of itself, and each person in the world is an individualization of it, and to the degree that they recognize it, they can consciously create their life. Or they will still create their life unconsciously. You see, the creative power, the law, is always working. It doesn't care if you're conscious or not. It takes your sum total of your thought, conscious and unconscious, and it creates from it. So you can immediately say, okay, I've got this experience in my life. I don't need to blame myself for it. I was unconscious. Now I'm going to build my conscious state up. And now I'm going to change what my experience is and allow the law to build what I choose because of who I am and because I love myself. There's a song that we sing in classes, and I'm not going to have you do it here. I've had it done before. But the words of the song are this: I love myself so much that I can love you so much so that you can love you so much so that you can start loving me. You see that where it starts out? That's how life flows. When I can love me so much and see God as me, the perfection of me, and give me freedom, then I can look at you and love you just as much as I love me, giving you perfect freedom. Then you can love yourself just as much, giving yourself freedom, and then you can come back and love me. See how that works? So when you're in this place of not being loving, when you open up to that one little thing of love, you open up to the reciprocal nature of God. Because as you give, it must come back. As you sow, you shall reap. You see how there's that law? It's a law of cause and effect. We're taking a new way of a different approach to looking at it so that we can say from this love aspect, how do we get it back? It's simply give it. Give it from your heart. Don't make it something like when you look at someone and you say the words, I love you, don't look off like this and say, I love you. Look into their eyes. Gaze fully into their eyes and say, I love you. Gaze fully into the eyes of your mirror when you go home. Look into your eyes and say, I love you. Look into your puppy's eyes. if she lets you stay for that long and say, I love you. Because my little puppy that I've just got, a 9-week-old lab, and she is just constantly, for the second she's looking in my eyes, there's pure love. And she says to me, you better give me perfect freedom. And I'm saying, as she's doing all this stuff, I said, okay, where can I be perfectly free? Well, you're not going to have potty habits in the house. So there's no freedom in that. But on the idea of being a puppy, if there's no destruction, yes, give freedom. Don't control. The idea is with children, give them freedom to express, but have boundaries to a point where there's a law of cause and effect. With a law of cause and effect, it means is that, okay, here's our rules. If you do this, then there's this natural consequence. And when someone does that, or if you have a spouse, let's say you have a spouse, Bill and Jolene, okay? I've created 2 names, and they're married. And Bill and Jolene are there, and they want to give each other perfect freedom. And when they give each other perfect freedom, they set boundaries. And they have an agreement. That's what I want to say by a boundary. It's an agreement that we will share our money toward a mutual goal. Okay, now if they step outside that, then they've got to really talk about it. You can have an agreement that we will raise our children together this way. We have an agreement, and we establish where the boundary is. You will always come first as long as you let me know. Did you hear that? Did you hear that second part? You will always come first as long as you let me know. Because what ends up happening in relationships is we think our partner can read our minds. They can't. Do you know the greatest gift I ever got was when I learned this statement? Ask for what you want when you want it. That is the greatest thing you can say about love. When you're with someone and you want something, you can ask for what you want when you want it, and they can say yes or no, and you give them the freedom to say yes or no. But you got to ask because they can't read your minds. I've known Jean forever. I don't know what she's thinking. She cannot read my mind, so when I want something, trust me, I ask. That way, there's never any doubt. There's never any hidden agendas, because anytime I would like something, some support in some form or fashion, I'm asking for it. So I never have to second guess what's going on with my wife, because if something's going on with her, she's asking me for it. Does that make sense? See how I've taken the mystery out of relationship there? And what it allows me to do, it allows me to be in the now. So if I'm in the now, I can be loving. But if I'm worried about what she's thinking, I'm thinking about the future, I'm wondering what I did in the past, I can't be in the now. Am I right? Everything is about the now. And so I would tell you that if you want to lose this idea of comfortably numb, you've got to be asking questions all the time. How can I be more loving? How can I show more love? How can I expand what I love? How can I be that loving presence that I desire to be in the world? Steve Curry could say, how can I be on the international stage playing my music? Because I know that's his goal. He hasn't said it, but I read it in him. The question I would say is, how can I support you in becoming that? That's saying, I love you. And I love Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is a gift to what he brings to Agape, because not only did he bring himself and his talent, he brought Alex and David to Agape. And we are truly blessed having these musicians here, because what I understand is music opens the soul. So you say, why do we do this musically? Because it opens my soul, and when it opens my soul, I'm able to give to you freely. See, a lot of people think that the music's for the community. Wrong. The music is to set up a message. It's there to open the heart to a degree so the message can be heard. Because music is more powerful at opening the heart. It's like 3 times more powerful. There was a study on it. When you think about that, that's why we do that. That's why we take one third of what we take in Sunday offerings pays for our music. We think it's that important. Not only do we think it, I believe it, because the churches or the spiritual communities that are thriving have a deep music presence. I love music because music sets me free. See how I worded that? When I feel free, that's the greatest feeling of love that I can have.